Hello and welcome to Uppsala University and Gotland Game Talk. My name is Pelle Forsmark and I will be your host today at this seminar, which is organized by the Department of Game Design here at Campus Gotland. Gotland Game Talk is created to give students, staff, alumni, and everyone interested the possibility to meet and learn from professionals in the field of game design, game development, and game production. Last semester, the series focused on project management and teamwork, and this spring the subject is Swedish game development clusters, hubs, and communities. Today, in this series premiere, we are joined by Petri Ahonen, business developer at Science Park Skövde and project leader at Sweden Game Arena. Petri is today a game industry professional with a long background in management, consulting, and business development. Sweden Game Arena, or SGA for short, is a game hub based in the cities of Skövde and Gothenburg, whose mission is to create the best possible conditions to foster a successful game industry in Sweden, and has been very successful, I might add, in doing so, together with the University of Skövde, as well as other academic and industry partners. Some of Sweden's biggest game exports in later years either originate or are based in Skövde. Coffee Stain Studios, Stunlock Studios, Redbeat Interactive, the makers of Raft, Iron Gate Studio, famous for Valheim, just to name a few. Today, we will get to know Petri and Sweden Game Arena a bit better. We will talk about what makes SGA successful and also perhaps what makes it unique. Hopefully, Petri will also share with us some advice on what to think about as aspiring future game developers. At the end of our conversation, we will end the recording and you, the audience, will be able to pose your questions directly to Petri. And please use the hand-raising function for that, and we will go through the questions in order for as long as there is time. But without further ado, hello, Petri Ahonen, and welcome to Gotland Game Talk.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
I kind of listed your titles there in the introduction, but please tell us a bit more about who you are and what it is that you do.
Yeah, I can actually add one more title to it, and it's internationalization as well. It's more fancier that way, I think. And so I work with business development and internationalization for our game companies in our communities. But my background is not game development, actually, because I'm an engineer. And I studied behavioral science at the University in Skövde as well. But I'm a gamer. I'm an old one. I started to play games back in late 80s. So you can just imagine how old I might be right now. But I've been doing management work for several years. I started my own companies. I've been the CEO, working with sales and marketing, sales strategies, marketing strategies. And if you look at my resume, it might be hard to find a red thread what I've been doing actually, but it mostly has been involved developing companies and people in the companies. I work in the finance industry as well for a couple of years, selling software solutions to the financial industry. So I tried to sell software solutions to sheikhs in Abu Dhabi and Dubai for a while as well.
Wow.
So I've been around for a while. And I started at the Science Park back in 2012 as a consultant when they needed more professional help when it comes to sales and marketing for the startups. And I got, then I was a consultant, as I said, and I got hired 2015. And after that, I've been doing full time at the Science Park for helping startups to develop their companies, export their products, helping them actually building their company from the bottom to the top, actually.
And how do you do that? What does it mean to be a business developer in that sense?
A lot of things, actually. When the startups are accepted to the program, I'm mainly their CEO. I'm pointing with the whole hand what they should do and what they should not do. And along the road, when they get the experience of running their own business, I become more of a coach. And that could take 6 months, but it could also take 2.5 years, actually, depending on how the team composition is and what kind of personalities you have in your teams.
Yeah, and I noticed it's quite common to have, like you, rather checkered background, especially in game production and in project management. That many people in the Swedish game industry, and I guess in the game industry in general, come from very different backgrounds and have done a lot of different things. So how come you ended up in the game industry?
Well, as I said, I've been playing game. I have played games since late 80s and played a lot of games in late 90s and beginning of 2000. And I think the game industry is very interesting when it comes to the technical development, the graphical design, and the products itself, which creates some kind of a need or fulfills different kinds of needs. And it's hard to tell what kind of need one product will fulfill with your players. And the variety of the game industry is very interesting when it comes to if you are doing games for mobile platforms or consoles or PC. The business models look different, and what we are doing and emphasize right now is how to raise capital in early stage for a game company, which is very essential if you want to speed up and get to the market faster than we usually did in the past, because the competition in the market is very fierce right now, and it's hard to do it without any capital.
And that brings us to what it is you do specifically in Skövde. And one of your jobs is to be project leader for Sweden Game Arena. So, and I realize this is a big question that probably has a lot of different answers to it. But what is Sweden Game Arena, if you were to describe it, and what is it that you do?
Sweden Game Arena is a brand, and it started back in 2014, and the brand is owned by Science Park Skövde, where I'm employed. It's partly owned by the University of Skövde and the Municipality of Skövde. So it's a brand which aims to create an environment for, as you said in the beginning, to foster talents, foster companies, and create an environment where they also are allowed to make mistakes. So what we have in the Science Park is the Sweden Game Startup program. And if you are successful in a program, you get your capital, you can move out to the Science Park and become an alumni company. And what we also do mainly is to facilitate international events like Game Developers Conference, where we are going late next week with 13 Swedish companies, and they are pitching for capital for it's roughly about 150 million Swedish crowns. So we have gathered 60 to 70 publishers and investors on site in San Francisco, where they are pitching live for them. And we also facilitate like Nordic Game in Malmö, Gamescom in Cologne, Game Connection in Paris. And we are publicly funded, which gives us the opportunity to facilitate these kind of events that companies otherwise might not have afford to go to. So our sole mission is to create sustainable businesses out of talents from University of Skövde. But when it comes to Gothenburg, the demographics looks different because they don't have game education like in Skövde or on Gotland. So we need to find the entrepreneurs in different kinds, other kinds of universities like Chalmers, GeoVentures, or spin-offs from established companies, because sometimes when you work in a game company for say 10 to 15 years, you might have the urge to be creative again and start your own business, which happens in Skövde as well on a regular basis right now.
Yeah, and as I mentioned in the beginning, you have all these success stories of successful game companies, both big and small, who have made it big in later years, that are either all based in Skövde or originate there somehow, or have benefited from that environment. What do you think? What do you think it is that makes Skövde specifically such a hotbed for the Swedish game industry?
Yeah, that's $1 million question, and I get it a lot. And
that's what we're trying to figure out here.
Yeah, then we have to go back to 2002 actually, to when the University of Skövde started their first game development programs, and they were actually the second in Sweden to have that. Gotland was, I think you were 6 months before Skövde, I think.
Yes.
And they started the game programs, and why they did that was because the IT crash in about 2000. And the teachers started to think, okay, what's the next thing? Okay, let's start doing game development programs. And they were not taken seriously about anyone actually, because no one was thinking that making games was a proper job, or a serious job, or even a job at all. And the Science Park started the incubation back in 2004, and the first team got accepted back in 2004, which was not a successful one. They went bankrupt twice, and then they merged with another company. So that's where we started to build the ecosystem in Skövde, which consists of the university and the science park. So we are, if you fast forward about 20 years, we are like the Siamese twins. So we are very independent of each other, that if the university doesn't attract the most talented game devs in Sweden, we can't create sustainable businesses either. And I think that's one of the key factors that have made this success, that we have the closeness to each other, because we are mainly sitting in the same building, even if we are two different organizations with sometimes different goals. But we are sitting in the same boat and trying to accomplish a good game industry in Sweden.
And how does that?
It does take a lot of passionate people to do it as well. So it doesn't make it itself.
No, of course. But I think that's a really interesting thing to sort of zoom in on, this symbiosis between the science park and the university. That is sort of, you mentioned that as one of the prerequisites and one of the key factors that have made Skövde successful as a game development environment. So could you talk a bit more about specifically what kind of activities you do together, how your collaboration works?
Yeah, we have created the culture of paid forward, and that's thanks to the companies that have become successful, who are paying it forward. What way? So paying it is some kind of payback time for them as well, to contribute to the community, especially to the students who are sometimes very disoriented on what they are going to do. Are they pursuing a career in the game industry, or do they want to start a company? So we arrange a lot of events where students, startups, and the established companies come together and talk to each other. And the magic happens when people meet each other, actually. So it's pretty straightforward. When you're having a pub night, we have about 160, 170 people coming to the pub night, talking to each other, and we don't need to have any agendas at all. Then we have master classes for the community as well. We have a lot of pitch events and regular party nights as well, because you need to party sometimes as well.
Yeah. How often do you do? Are there activities like every week or every month or?
Basically, we have at least twice a month in various fields, and I meet the CEOs once a month. We have a mutual lunch, one in Skövde and one in Gothenburg, when I have the opportunity to talk to them to see what kind of needs they have.
The game companies.
The game companies, yeah. And then we have the Play My Game events where students can showcase their projects at the same time with the startups and sometimes with established companies who are trying to make their next export success.
And then, of course, you have the Sweden Game Conference as well that you organize every year.
Yeah, that's an annual event that we have in mid-October every year, and we usually are about 1,500 people watching talks in various fields, in graphics, programming, AI, general new technology, and then we have the business track where we help companies to showcase the games, and then we have all strategic discussions. Okay, how can we develop the Swedish game industry in general as well?
And how many game companies roughly are there in Skövde now that are part of this network?
It depends on how you count. I would say we are having about 25 teams in the startup program in various stages in their process. And then we have about 30 established companies as well. In the last count with the Spelutvecklarindex in 2022, we had 35 companies that were counted in the Spelutvecklarindex, and their revenue was 1.8 billion Swedish crowns, and the revenue was just about 1 billion Swedish crowns. So some of the companies are doing pretty good, I would say.
Yeah. And do you see sort of a trend or a pattern? Is this a lot of startups that come from like the education and go through your business development programs and incubators and startup boosters and set up their companies there? Is there also a lot of external companies coming and establishing themselves in Skövde? Is the mix?
Yeah, we are starting to mix it up, but the main stream of new ideas comes from the university when it comes to Skövde. But we also have companies that we are coaching in Malmö, Stockholm, Umeå, Borås, Linköping, because they've heard about our program and that might be a good idea to be a part of it. And our funding allows us to coach teams all over Sweden, because we are funded by the municipality of Skövde, the Western region, and Vinnova, which is the authority of innovation in Sweden. So that gives us the opportunity to bring in teams from everywhere. And it's not required for them to, it's not a demand from our side that they need to move to Skövde. We can have remote coaching. And that's due to, or thanks to the pandemic times, that we needed to develop new tools to coach our game companies. So I would say it's a mix of external companies being part of our program, but I would say the majority of the teams in Skövde are coming from the university.
That's really interesting. And how could you describe sort of an example of how that? What would that look like if you have a team coming out from the education and going into one of your business development programs or the incubator?
Yeah.
What does the journey look like?
First of all, we assume that you can make a game. And I would say that most of the teams that comes out of the university, they can do a game, but they don't necessarily know how to do the business. And that's what we are helping them with. And you should have a team you must have a team to be accepted into the program, because past in the days you could come in like a solo developer, but it takes too long. The development process is too long to reach the market, and we needed to speed up the pace a couple of years back to be more competitive on a global market. So what they have to do in the first stage of the process is to validate their idea on a market. And it doesn't help to just ask your closest family and friends to ask them, do you think my game is good? But you need to attract a broader audience, and that's for their own sake as well, so they know that they are pursuing the right idea. So in the first stage, they are prohibited of doing a game. They are building a case, and we have the first milestone is a pitching session for external publishers mainly, so we can have a second opinion on the game and on the team as well. And the main program starts when you start your company, an AB, which is a prerequisite to enter the program. We support with leadership programs, financial education, marketing strategies, business model generation, IP strategy, in order to attract capital as soon as possible. Because when we tweaked our business development process 3-4 years back, they can only pursue 2 tracks. Both tracks means that you need to have capital either from publishers or investors, and depending on what track you choose, the business model looks a little bit different. And as I said earlier, we can also support them to go to GDC in San Francisco, Gamescom, to meet publishers and investors, pitch their games as many times as possible. Sometimes you need to pitch your game 45, 50 times until you find somebody who's remotely interested in your game, and they might even put in some money into your studio as well. So pitching is one of the key ingredients in the program, because the better you get at pitching your game, the greater is the chance that you get your funding as well. And what we are also trying to teach our game companies is that to think big from the beginning. Don't ask for 100 Swedish crowns, because that doesn't take you anywhere. For example, when we are going to GDC next week with 12 companies, the team that are asking for least money, they are asking for $200,000. And
that's the smallest amount.
The smallest amount, yeah. And the biggest amount is $5 million.
Now, how big are these teams?
Yeah, but they consist of people with background in AAA production, so they might have an idea or two what they're actually doing.
But how many teams do you have in the program at the same time? And How many get out in the other end with the startup?
We are trying to exit 4 or 5 teams every year, and we accept about 15, and we accept about 10 to 15% of the applicants. So it's what's it called in English?
Like an eye of a needle, quite a narrow.
Yeah. And it's getting narrower because you need to meet a lot of standards when it comes to innovation, uniqueness, and your market potential, which we assess in the beginning, and we do that during the process as well on a regular basis. So you need to have progress in order to be part of the program, and if you don't have progress, there's a great risk that you are being kicked out.
So what is it, would you say, that sets apart the successful applicants from the ones that you don't even take on? Is there anything in common?
Yeah, the big difference is that those who become successful, they kill their darlings very early. They don't get married to their game idea, even if it's their passion. But if the market isn't there, why pursue it? At least if your idea is to get a salary from that game. But you can keep on doing your passion project on the side in your free time if you want to. But when it comes to business, it's data and the numbers that proves if you are on the right track or not. And those who are good at it, they pivot a lot and fast. But that's why we created the environment in Skövde as well, where we allow the teams to make mistakes and fail. I usually say that, well, many people say that fail fast, but I would say fail fast and cheap. And when it comes to cheap, it doesn't, well, when you're doing your first project, it doesn't cost any that much money, but it might cost you a lot of time. And it's costful if you spend it on the wrong project. So we have a very data-driven process when you have to prove that you are getting traction on the market, attracting investors or publishers in some way. That's a way of validating your project as well, if you attract external capital. And
we're already rushing towards the end of our time here. But now that we started talking about it, you've had a lot of experience now, and you've seen a lot of teams come into the programs. You've seen success stories and failures. Could you talk a bit more about what advice you would have for future aspiring game developers?
Yeah, I wrote down a couple of the advices, and I think I mentioned some of them already. Is that have a team. It's hard to be alone. It's really hard to be a two-man band as well. Have a team of 5 or 6 at least, and have a vision for your game or your company from the beginning, because that's going to be a guideline to make good decisions along the road. And as I said earlier, think big from the start and start raising capital very early, even if you don't have a lot of stuff to show, but you can always sell your team to publishers or investors. And attend pitch events. Some of our pitch events are public, which means that you can watch and learn from other teams that have done that for a year or 2 and have pitched their game to publishers, investors several times, and they have been iterating on their pitch from time to time as well. Be a part of networking events. Meeting people is it's very valuable. That's my 5 cents so far, at least.
Those are some valuable 5 cents. So thank you so much to conclude, is there anything I haven't asked you that you think I should have asked you, or some closing remarks you would like to make?
It feels like I've been ranting on a lot, so I don't know. I think we covered the most important stuff.
All right, great. Thank you so much for talking to us today, Petri Ahonen from Sweden Game Arena.
Thank you.